Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast, the show for women who are seeking more fulfillment in life and simply not getting it from their current situation. We focus specifically on careers, but hey, we spend a lot of time in our careers, so making changes here will definitely create an impact in your overall happiness. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and my mission is to empower women to succeed. I believe that in order to powerfully own your career, you must decide and claim that you want to sit in the driver's seat. You must know that you deserve better and be willing to not only do the requisite work, but be willing to go out on a limb to ensure your success. Each episode focuses on profiling a leader who is clearly demonstrating ownership of their career. Join me and my guests as we explore career journeys and bring you actionable strategies to use to get into the driver's seat for your career. Because ultimately, your career is your responsibility. Let's get into the show. Hi there, it's Simone Morris, your host for the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. How are you guys doing? I really hope that you're having a wonderful week or you have a wonderful week planned ahead. I'm super excited to have a great week. Last week was phenomenal, just so many things going on. But I'm excited because the journey for empowering others to be in the driver's seat for their career exists for me every day. And there's an opportunity to impart that knowledge to you. So I want to thank you for being a listener for the podcast. I really do appreciate it. I want to ask you a favor. If you haven't already done it, can you please go to the Apple Podcast and leave a review for the show? That would be so helpful to me as I try to drive home the message or to increase visibility for the show. So if you get a moment, do that for me, please. Again, it's going over to iTunes and leaving a review. Hopefully it's a 5-star review and letting others know that they can get some valuable takeaways from the episodes that we do. I want to tell you that we are currently in 15 countries, which is so exciting to me. Started the podcast back in December 2018, and we're going strong. A couple more episodes left for season 1, but I'm excited to look at the statistics and see that 15 countries are interested in the message that we're sharing. And the top 3 countries are, of course, the United States, Australia, and Canada. So that makes me very excited. So keep listening, and I'm thankful for each and every one of you that listen to the podcast each time I deliver an episode. I want to apologize for not delivering an episode last week. I fully intended to, but I had some deaths in the family and, just really running, and I had to prioritize and be very kind to myself because I am a type A personality and really want to deliver to you, but I want to deliver a quality product. So I purposely decided to hold the episode that I was going to release, but know that there's a queue of wonderful episodes waiting for you to receive them. So this week's guest is Stephanie Richmond. She's amazing. She's got so many skills, so many careers that she brings to the show that she's going to share with you how she consistently reinvents herself and leverages all the skills that she's accumulated over the years. So I think you'll get a lot of value from this episode. So stay tuned and listen up for Stephanie Richmond, who is the CEO and founder of the Stand Beside Them organization. Listen in and enjoy this episode. Stephanie, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Simone. I'm happy to be here. Well, I'm the founder and coach of Stand Beside Them, and our nonprofit provides free career coaching, life coaching, small business and health and wellness coaching to military veterans and their spouses and caregivers as well. But I've been a number of things in my career. I'm a lawyer, a lobbyist. I've been a journalist, an assistant TV producer, and an entrepreneur. So I guess you could say I've reinvented myself a number of times, but the thing that I'm doing now with Stand Beside Them is I get the most inner fulfillment from, that's for sure.
That's awesome. I mean, when I read your bio, I thought it's clear that you've been in the driver's seat many times in your career. As you said in your intro, that you've been in the process of reinventing yourself.
So what are some highlights from that journey?
One of the career stops along the way was the lecture circuit. That was a business I started after actually I went on a job interview for a company that provided lecturers to go out, and then you would book the lecturer for a company and then you would get a commission. It seemed to me like that was something I could do without working for someone else. So I just went home and gathered all my contacts and started this business called the lecture circuit. So one of the highlights from when I was at the lecture circuit was when I was able to I had a contract with American Express and with Prudential Beach at the time, and I was supposed to get all the gold medal winning athletes together and have them appear at a dinner 2 nights later after their event this was in Calgary. So I had to really do a lot of scurrying, but I was able to do it. And it resulted in a standing ovation from the Amex CEO and all the guests. So it was a wonderful feeling that I was able to accomplish that. So I've had several highlights along the way. That was a very rewarding experience at that Olympics.
Well, it sounds amazing. So tell us, what skills does it require for you to be sort of the chameleon? You've just reinvented yourself. You said entrepreneur, you said lawyer. Now you're doing stand beside them. What does it take to constantly restart and stay in the driver's seat?
Very good question, Simone. I would say that it takes an ability to look within yourself and be very self-introspective about what your talents are and what your strengths and values are and what do you enjoy doing, what are you best at. And I know I'm very, very good at networking. I have a lot of contacts. I'm very good at putting people together, which I still do now at Stand Beside Them. I pair coaches with veterans. I have a good ability to get to know people, and I trust my instincts. What I've done each time I've reinvented is you actually make a list of what you're good at, and you try to create a job where you can use all those skills. When I went out on that interview, for example, and I saw there is a job that can utilize my skills, but I can do it on my own and be my own boss, that was when I decided to look into what it would take to start the business. I will say that having a law degree has helped me every step of the way. It helps with contracts, which are very, very important. So I had a good basis with the law degree. But after that, it was just a question of figuring out what I like to do and then going after it.
Yeah, amazing. It sounds like you have a very rich background of the many different talents that you've been able to leverage over the years.
Well, thank you.
Have you written a book?
Everybody says that to me, that I should do that. And I'm thinking of doing that. I just never have time. If there was enough time, I would do that because I really have some wonderful, not only advice, but I think people laugh and enjoy hearing some of my funny experiences that I've had along the way.
Yeah, it's really interesting to read your story. And I mean, we certainly could talk for an hour about the different avenues that you've taken. So can you tell us just a career-defining moment for you that really signified to yourself that I am in the driver's seat?
Okay, well, I had an experience many years ago where I was working for a trade association of music publishers, songwriters, and actually the man who hired me, who was a legend in the field, he developed cancer and died within 6 months of my getting hired. So unfortunately, he was my mentor, and the person that was next in command was a bit threatened by me from the start. And at the time, if we had these harassment suits, I would have been definitely able to bring one because I was really abused in several ways about everything. It was what I was wearing, what I was, anything. And every time I worked on something, I was told that I couldn't appear at the event, and the other person wanted to get all the glory, let's say, which I don't like. I don't like being kept in the background. So anyway, I decided that this was not a place for me anymore. It was a toxic environment. So I decided I'm not going to stay here. And I knew he didn't want me to stay. So I negotiated a very, very good exit contract. And I got to get paid and not come in for several months. And I got it during those few months. I decided that, you know what? I'm going to go out on my own. I'm not going to work for anybody ever. It was such a bad experience that I decided from now on, I'm my own boss. And that's when I went on that interview at that organization that was doing booking speakers for companies. And that's when I decided I'll start my own business and called it the Lecture Circuit. But I did a lot of other things before I had that last job. So I had confidence in myself that I knew I'd been a newspaper reporter. By then I had worked for a network at CBS. So I had a lot of great contacts, and I knew that with those contacts, I could parlay them into this business, the Lecture Circuit.
And was that your last time working for someone else?
Yes, definitely.
Oh, wonderful.
It really was. I made lemonade with the lemons. And
nice. Can you tell us, because it sounds like you've had a very fruitful career, can you tell us how you have dealt with risk or appreciating risk or taking risk in your career?
Well, I think you should always ask yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen before you do anything? And if it's very serious, don't take the risk. But fortunately, I had a very strong support of my family and friends. And I mean, the worst thing that could happen was I would have had to go back and get a job for somebody else. And maybe it would be a better person, and it wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world. But it just worked out for me this way, that I always found I guess I became a coach for myself before I actually became a coach. I actually got certified. I knew what would make me succeed on my own.
Nice. So what would you say the formula is for successfully owning your career?
Well, you have to really get to know yourself, your strengths as well as your weaknesses. Then you can envision a scenario where you'll be utilizing these. Like I said, just where would I be the happiest? What would I be doing that would then create a plan to get there, either as a solo entrepreneur or working for someone who you respect and who shares your values. Make sure you do a lot of research into, now they have all these wonderful things like Glassdoor, where you can actually look up a company, see how other employees feel they've been treated there. You can get so much information off the internet. You can see what the values are at a given company. It's all out there to do that research. And planning is vital. If you do the research within and without yourself, you'll get there. And you can always do this with the help of a professional career coach, which I highly recommend, because after going to coaching school, I learned there's so many different ways to evoke things out of people that they may not have thought of. So sometimes a career coach might think of something you haven't thought of.
Absolutely. And I love what you said about values, because I think these days being really in tune with your values and how they align with whatever it is, if you want to go the corporate route or even do your own thing, creating that value system that aligns to your core values, and also understanding the culture. I think culture is a big thing.
Absolutely.
What resources, online or otherwise, have you found to be helpful in owning your career?
We have a resource list on our website, Stand Beside Them, that has a lot of great insight. It is mostly for veterans, but it's also for small business entrepreneurs. It tells you where to go to get some courses or classes. So I believe in going to resource lists. Go to organizations that have a similar subject matter to what you want to do, and just ask if they have any resources on where to get a job or a career in their particular field. I would suggest that as well. Like, we have a resource page, others do as well, and I always advise people to check the resource center on our website, for example.
Okay, I will definitely in the show notes put a link to that resource page that you have mentioned.
Absolutely. And the SBA, SCORE, all those places are very, very helpful. SCORE gives you an individual person to work with you, And if you want to start a small business, they're very good. The Small Business Administration also has courses on writing business plans, on getting financing. If you're a small entrepreneur, there's a lot of great help you can get from the SBA.
Absolutely. It's amazing how much free help is out there as well.
Right.
You need to give your time, but there's lots of resources, to your point, that's available to support a career journey.
Right. Like Workforce One here in New York. And they're wonderful. There's some even have courses on specific fields like how to get into IT and, it's start an IT or start a software company, or it's just amazing.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Workforce One. So is that similar to SCORE?
Now, Workforce One is in New York. I think they have courses, more general ones, but there's one that starts with an N for the letter N, Power. They also help with courses for people who want to get into the IT field. Okay,
great. Haven't heard of that one.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing those.
My pleasure.
Oh, sure.
Well, I'm always learning about new, and we're always adding them to our resource list. So it's getting quite long, our resource list on our website.
Absolutely. So tell our listeners a little bit more about Stand Beside Them, because we sort of jumped right into the interview, but tell them a little bit more about Stand Beside Them and what you do.
Okay. Thank you for asking. Stand Beside Them is my baby. It's the love of my life, this organization. I started with 5 coaches in New York and DC, and what we decided was we wanted to give back to veterans. We know how hard the transition from the culture of the military to civilian life is, because we've heard it from many, many people, and we've read all the surveys, and some of the statistics are quite upsetting. So we decided to start this organization, and now we have 130 coaches in 30 states who are all giving back. And these are all professional certified coaches like Simone. And they've gone to school like me, like I did, for coaching. And we love coaching as a profession, but we love giving back to veterans. So we coach them on everything from career, which could be resumes, to interview skills, polishing their interview skills, to learning to network, to adjusting to the differences in a culture from a corporate culture to military, and those are vast differences. And we also coach on how to communicate, because it's a whole new way of communicating in the military to corporate life. So the other thing we do is we coach on, as we discussed, starting a small business, everything from helping with the business plan and helping with all the little stops along the way to creating and developing a new business. We also coach on health and wellness issues, nutrition, life coaching issues, relationships, on balancing work and life, all those areas we do. And we provide them free. Our coaches are giving back as volunteers. And that's what's so wonderful about this. We have like a volunteer workforce around the country.
Amazing. It's wonderful, the work that you're doing. What was your impetus for starting? Because you transitioned to the nonprofit space, and you said it's your baby and it's given you that spiritual reward.
Yes. It was like, one thing was, I've always been very supportive of our military, and I always felt very sad what happened in Vietnam and how our veterans were treated when they came back. I was just horrified by that. Also, I have military family members. My father was in the Army. My uncle was in the Navy. But the most important thing was, I worked at the Peace Corps for a while, 3 years, as a lawyer in charge of their legislative program to increase the budget on Capitol Hill to provide for more volunteers around the world. And the deputy director there was Everett Alvarez, who was a naval commander who was held in Vietnam as a POW for 9.5 years. And he had a profound impact on me. I was absolutely overwhelmed by working with him, to see his resilience and his sense of humor. And I couldn't believe it. And getting to know him and understanding military values. He was the first real close-up, because my father was in so many years ago, and he never really talked about his experience. But to talk with Everett for days during my 3 years at the Peace Corps really, really stuck with me. And then when I read a report by the Rand Corporation about the needs of transitioning veterans, I knew that there was something that I needed to do. I could see that there was a gap at the VA. This is 6 years ago, and while they're doing better, this was really bad back then, much worse. I just knew that the needs that were expressed in this report could be met with coaches. And this bell went off, and I don't know how this report crossed my email. I don't know. It was like, I felt like it came from God, because once I read it, I just knew there was something that I had to do. And so I gathered these friends of mine from my coaching class, and they said they'd be delighted. I'm sure they probably thought nothing would ever happen very much. And then it just grew and grew and grew. And now it's just phenomenal. I can't believe it's gotten as big as it has. And we're hoping to continue further and have coaches in all 50 states.
Wonderful. Well, I am a supporter, and I believe in your mission, and it's really wonderful work.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. What advice would you give to someone wanting to successfully own their career?
Well, I would tell them to do what I said before, like sit down, make a list of all the things that you enjoy doing in a work capacity. I mean, just all your skills. Say, do you write well? Do you connect well with people? Do you like to travel? Do you not like to travel? And just put the things that you like to do, and then just envision where would you be able to utilize these things that you do the best. Like once for a few years when my son was very little, when he was about 6 years old, I wanted to travel a little bit more than I was, and I wanted to spend time in France. So I decided to start a business selling French antiques because I love them. And I did that for about 4 years. I figured, and it was fun. It was great. I made pretty good money, not enough to continue it beyond, because what happened was 9/11, and then everything changed with getting things brought into this country. Things took twice as long. It costs a lot more. So I had to stop. But what I'm saying is just figure out what you like to do the best, even if it's something that you think might be a hobby, or that you never know, you could make a business out of it.
Wonderful advice, Stephanie.
And if you can't do this alone, get a coach to help you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all about coaching, isn't it? The power of coaching.
It's very powerful.
It is indeed. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie, for being on the podcast and sharing with us the journey of Stand Beside Them and your rich background. I honestly believe the book needs to get written, because we uncovered lots of things that I didn't know about you as well. So,
oh, really? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm glad. Well, yes, we never have time to get together enough in this, because I'm so busy, but I'd love to see you, Simone, and I'm sure it's going to happen soon.
Yes, I will see you later this month at the luncheon. Right. But tell our listeners how they can get connected with you if they would like to.
Of course. On my website, standbesidethem.org. Yeah, remember the .org, because that's a nonprofit designation at the end. But if you want to email me, you can write srichmond, that's spelled like Richmond, Virginia, at standbesidethem.org.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. I have thoroughly enjoyed our discussion, and I know that our listeners will get a lot of value from your salient wisdom.
Oh, well, thank you. Anytime. It was my absolute pleasure. I appreciate your inviting me.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. It is my hope that you enjoyed today's episode. You can check out the show notes for this episode on the SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org website by clicking the podcast menu. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and tell a friend or two about it.